Hi, this is Special Techniques and I'm Alex Capshaw-Taylor of Worldknits. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to work the mattress stitch. The mattress stitch is what you'll use to seam your finished projects. I know a lot of people are not fans of seaming, but I think once you learn how to use this stitch, it won't be as bad and you'll be able to go ahead and finish your projects. I actually really like the mattress stitch because it magically rolls your selvage edge to the wrong side of your fabric and it just looks really pretty. So I have two swatches here just of stockinette stitch fabric. You can use the mattress stitch for any kind of fabric, cables, lace, whatever, but you definitely want to have a selvage edge. And what I've done on my selvage edge and for my patterns, I typically write in a selvage edge where you do a knit stitch on both the right and the wrong side for the selvage edge. And that just really helps you identify between the first and second stitch and where you're going to be inserting your needle to do this mattress stitch. So there's two directions to do the mattress stitch. I'm going to show you first how to use the mattress stitch for vertical seams, so like the side seam of your sweater. And then I'll show you how to do it for a horizontal seam, which would be like joining at the shoulders. And I'll show you on a finished project how you would end up working the mattress stitch on to set in a sleeve. So let's go ahead and do that vertical seam. So what you'll need is a darning needle, and you'll typically be using the same yarn as you'll use in your project. However, I'm going to show you that it doesn't really matter if you do use the same yarn because you're not going to see this seamed yarn. So if you are running short on yarn, you can use a different yarn for the seaming process. Okay, so what you're going to do is have both of your fabric pieces with the right sides facing. And on the right side, you're going to go into the very bottom stitch between that first and second stitch of this fabric. Go in from back to front and pull it through, and you're going to leave about a 6-inch tail that you'll weave in later. And now on your other piece of fabric, you're going to again go in from back to front on that edge stitch and pull the fabric all the way through. And that's kind of your setup row or setup step. And now what we're going to do is between this first and second stitch here, we're going to pick up 2 loops. There we go. And then we're going to draw our yarn through. And now on the other side, we're going to go under 2 loops between the first and second stitch and pull our yarn through. Okay, and back to the first piece. Under 2 loops, pull your yarn through, and to the left side, under 2 loops, pull it through. And you're just going to keep doing this, working from side to side under 2 loops, pulling your yarn through. I usually work a couple stitches before I end up tightening this yarn here. And when I tighten it, you can see that it disappears and it looks like your fabric is seamlessly joined there. And on the back, it creates this really pretty rolled edge. And so you'll see that you don't even see the seaming yarn. So that's why if you ran out of yarn, your project yarn, you could use a different color to do your seaming work. Try and use the same yarn weight though. Okay, so again, we're going to go from, we've finished on this side, so now we're going to go to this gray piece, go under 2 and through, now to the turquoise, under 2 and through. And you're going to do this all the way up your seam. Okay, and then again tighten, and I'll show you how it disappears. Isn't that pretty? So that's the vertical seam. Next we're going to learn how to do the horizontal mattress stitch seam. To do the horizontal mattress stitch seam, you're going to start in the same way with both right sides of your work facing. And just like we did for the vertical seam, we're going to start in one corner. We're going to insert our darning needle from back to front of one piece, and then on the other piece, I'm going to do the same thing from back to front, and that's kind of our setup step. And now, instead of going under the 2 bars like we did on the vertical, we're going to go under 2 legs of a stitch. And pull your yarn through. And then over to the other side, 2 legs of a stitch. Pull your yarn through, back to the first piece, under 2 legs, pull through, and you're doing this right along your either your cast on or your bind off edge. Under 2, pull through, under 2, pull through. Okay, and again, just like the vertical seam, I usually do a couple stitches before I tighten this up. And so now I'm just going to pull on my yarn and tighten this up, and you'll see that the seam rolls to the wrong side of your fabric, just like it did for the vertical mattress stitch. And again, the seaming yarn disappears, so if you needed to use a different colored yarn, don't worry, you can do that. So again, I'll keep going a couple more stitches. So we ended on this gray piece, and now we're going to go over to the turquoise, go under 2 legs, pull your yarn on the gray piece under 2 legs, and pull your yarn. And that's as easy as the mattress stitch is. It's really not tough. I think the hardest part is probably identifying where you're inserting your needle. But if you use the knit one salvage edge on your vertical seams, and then for this horizontal seam, it's a little easier to see. You won't run into too many problems. All right, there we go. We're going to tighten this up. And look how pretty. All right, so next I'm going to show you how you would combine the vertical and the horizontal to set in a sleeve. This is the Pickett's Rock pullover from my book Little Man Knits, and it uses a set-in sleeve. So at this point, you've already sewn your vertical side seam here, your vertical sleeve seam here, and your horizontal shoulder seam here. What you're going to do is pin your sleeve into your sweater, your sleeve hole here. And you're going to start by pinning, matching the underarm seam with the side seam. And at the top of your sleeve cap, that very center of your sleeve cap, you'll match with your shoulder seam. And then you'll just place pins around the rest of the sleeve to hold it in place as you seam your sleeve to your sweater. And you'll start seaming here at the underarm. And this is great because both at the underarm of your sleeve and the underarm of your sweater, you're going to start with a horizontal seam. But as you start working around this curve, you'll end up having to work some horizontal stitches with some vertical stitches. So you'll pick up horizontally from your sweater, but vertically from your sleeve seam, or from your sleeve cap. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. Knitting is really forgiving. You do want to be kind of close, but don't worry about being perfect. And as you get around this curve, you'll get to a point where you're working vertically off of your sleeve and vertically off of the body of your sweater. And you'll just follow the seam all the way around, ending again here at the bottom of your underarm. So again, don't worry if you're not doing it perfectly, it'll end up looking just fine. Just the only thing to avoid is missing stitches so that you end up with holes. And that's the mattress stitch. This is Alex Capshaw-Taylor of Worldknits. Happy knitting!